Remember the days when our favorite properties would be announced as having a TV show or a movie, and we'd be all excited about it? Remember that? Those days are long gone because we've seen so many of our favorite fandoms just absolutely butchered that now we're under the impression that some things are better left untouched. And this is an example of one of those things. Let me dive into today's topic. So this comes to us from Bounding Into Comics, who says, new report claims Prime Video abandoned a Conan the Barbarian TV series because of toxic masculinity. Okay, well, better abandoning it than completely uprooting it and changing it like a certain cartoon did. You know what I mean? And that's what's mind-boggling about it, is when you take a franchise that is built on being a power fantasy, in this case this is a male power fantasy, and then you want to complain about toxic masculinity and you think masculinity is inherently toxic, then no, you're not going to be able to produce anything that anybody wants to watch. So smart move, abandoning it. So let's see what this says. A new report claims that Prime Video abandoned a Conan the Barbarian TV series due to toxic masculinity. A Conan the Barbarian TV series was announced by Deadline back in 2018. In the initial announcement, it was revealed that current House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal was behind the series. He was also joined by House of the Dragon showrunner and Game of Thrones director Miguel. I can't pronounce that. They detailed the series would retell Conan's origins, of course, because everybody is obsessed with doing origin stories. But here's the thing is, I am under the impression now that the reason why so many of these mainstream outlets or wherever they be, like movie production companies or even video games, they love to tell origin stories. And the reason why is because they want to change the stories. It's not really about, oh, let's find out what made them tick. Let's find out what made them who they are. You know, I can go on tangents about Tomb Raider. It's not about that for them. They don't care about that. So whenever I see origin story now, after having experienced everything we've seen with Tomb Raider and a number of other things, now this is code word for a complete retelling. This is a code word for uprooting. This is a code word for making into your own thing and erasing the past. So that's what that is. As he is driven out of his tribal homelands and wanders the mysterious and treacherous world of civilization, where he searches for purpose in a place that rejects him as a mindless savage. The report also specifically noted that this Conan the Barbarian series would be part of Jeff Bezos and Prime Video's answer to Game of Thrones, with Deadline's Nelly Andreeva writing. The project falls into Amazon's push into big fantasy genre drama series with a broad appeal in the mold of Game of Thrones, which is similar enough what they try to do with Rings of Power and colossally failed. The Conan the Barbarian series never came to fruition at Amazon, and in 2020, producer Frederick Malmberg moved the project to Netflix, where he's working on both live action and animated adaptations of the character. Or, you know, making an animated series where the main character is overshadowed and barely in it. That's common these days. A little over a year ago, Malmberg indicated that they had moved forward in the production of the live-action series and had begun writing the series. Malmberg explained, "With Conan, I'm happy to say that we are writing. We are in development, which means we basically work with a writer who has written the first draft of the pilot of the series and then season overview." Now, hold up. Let's rewind a second, too, because I believe the initial plans here for a writer, Nelly, this is a woman writing it. You know, why is it that a lot of people want to complain, especially among the more woke outlets or of the woke I hate even using that term. I hate it, but it's just where we're at. But of the woke movement in general, they don't like to see men write female characters, for example. That's one of the big criticism with Lara Croft, is because she was created by a man. But what they also fail to realize is that she was written by a woman. Regardless, I don't even think that matters that much. I think that a man can write a story about a female character and a woman can write a story about a male character. But there is a double standard there with this whole movement and where we've been. Absolutely. So, and honestly, when it comes to Conan, which is just a very hyper masculine male power fantasy dude, like, I consider myself a tomboy and I don't even feel equipped for that. I think that in this kind of story, you probably are going to want more of a perspective that can definitely flesh out that primal male power fantasy a lot better than, I don't know what Nelly looks like. Hopefully not a blue-haired woman. Okay, so we are working together with Netflix team. Obviously, with the COOF, it's been a little tricky because everybody's working from home. It's all Zoom conferences and very difficult to get everyone aligned. Things are progressing, but as always, you want them to progress faster than they do. But that's the world they live in. But things are going well, he added. Why the series was moved from Amazon to Netflix was never really explained, but a new report from YouTube channel Midnight's Edge claims that it was cut from Amazon due to toxic masculinity. First, Midnight's Edge founder Andre explains that Amazon didn't just want a Game of Thrones competitor. They wanted to dominate the entire fantasy TV market. Ooh, they're failing hard at that right now. He says Bezos wanted something which would enable Amazon to dominate the fantasy market the same way Game of Thrones had done for HBO. To make that dominance complete, though, they weren't looking for just one Game of Thrones, but two. One for the family market and one for a more adult market. One that would quite literally capture the exact same market that was engrossed in Game of Thrones. After detailing that The Lord of the Rings was their path to dominating the family market, this guy details that Conan the Barbarian was their initial property to capture the more adult market. He explained Amazon wanted Lord of the Rings to capture the family market, but to be their Game of Thrones, to take over the Game of Thrones market, they had something else in mind, mainly Conan the Barbarian. It was the perfect property to fill the same need as Game of Thrones, and they had the perfect showrunner for it. One Ryan Condal, the then of Colony fame, this guy details, and the script he had written were extremely true to the original Robert E. Howard stories, and according to everyone who read them, amazingly good. Well, I mean, hey, a script that's actually very true to the original, this is a good thing. And if executed properly, there's a reason why Conan the Barbarian is such a global icon as he is. Clearly, they were doing something right with this character and something right with this story. I'm not even super versed in Conan myself, but I know who he is. Everybody knows who he is. So there's a reason for it. And whenever you take these type of properties and you try to fit them into today's world and today's politics, and you are too offended by basically what makes a property what it is, then yeah, you're not going to be able to reproduce the same thing in a more politically correct wrapping paper, I guess you could say. It's just not going to be the same. Not with Conan, just like with Tomb Raider. When you dull down Lara Croft and just how powerful she was, and part of her power fantasy being her curvy build and being that like extra, that extra next level woman, then yeah, you're really going to detract from what you can create. So, if they were to do the same with Conan, for example, like slim him down, keep him from being like this big, bulky, strong guy, take the women out of it, no more rescuing women, that sort of thing, you're gonna have something completely different. I need to figure out how to pronounce this name while I keep reading this. Ernherjar then explains how it all went wrong. But then the executives who had commissioned Conan in the first place were #MeToo'd and replaced with Jennifer Salk. She came in to clean up Amazon both in terms of culture and content. This sounds like where things go wrong. I don't know about this whole Me Too scenario with these particular people, so I cannot comment on that. However, I will say we keep seeing this with gaming companies, with movie, TV shows, whatever it may be, where they're having people come in to kind of clean up the culture. Square Enix fairly recently came out with hiring somebody for their team or a group or whatever to improve the culture, basically to wokeify it. In other words, this is where you go downhill. You can't take a property like Conan and wokeify it. It won't work. Nobody will watch it. Who is your target demographic here? You know? And here's another thing is I feel like a lot of times after we've seen Patty Jenkins and what she did with Wonder Woman, which I think in her situation, she actually did a good job and she was good for the role. Well, I think what that did for a lot of the nerd cinematic culture is what it's created was, okay, now we need a female writer or we need a female director or they look for check boxes of personal identity. Okay, what are things that a person cannot control about themselves, and they're finding somebody to fit those boxes of just purely based on what they look like, who they are, their gender, their race, their sexuality, whatever it may be. And so whenever you're putting people in these roles only for those reasons and not for the work that they create, then yeah, you're not going to end up with the same product that you would by simply hiring who's best for the job, who understands the material. That makes a big difference. He then specifically claims Salk canned the show due to toxic masculinity and replaced it with the Wheel of Time, where others saw the next Game of Thrones in Ryan Condal's Conan scripts. Jennifer Salk saw only toxic masculinity. Okay, so they hired a Karen. Good job, Amazon. As such, Ryan Condal was fired, Conan was scrapped, and Jennifer Salk picked The Wheel of Time to be Amazon's more adult-oriented Game of Thrones replacement, although she made sure to make it even more female-centric than it already was, just to be sure there would be absolutely no toxic masculinity. What do you make of this report? Do you think Netflix's version will embrace the toxic masculinity of Conan the Barbarian? We see this time and time again. This is definitely not new now, and other companies are being absolutely destroyed from the inside out because of this happening. You're having an activist walk in who is not a fan of said properties and who doesn't even like them. Not only are they not a fan and do they not understand, which is bad enough, but they detest them and they despise everything about them, and they are more concerned about pushing their political and social message and agenda than they are actually creating an entertaining piece of work. And yeah, this is why we're seeing a lot of issues. Look at Amazon's Rings of Power right now, going through everything it is. Yeah, good job, guys. Good job. Way to just absolutely destroy everything we've once loved and try to erase it all because it does not fit your narrative. But at the end of the day, hey, what we watch, what we partake in, what we buy, that's what matters more than anything. A lot of companies are seeing now that when you even see in the G4 videos I've also covered, when you try to appeal to this activist audience and that becomes more important to you than just creating fun stories, and you find offense in absolutely everything. You find offense in men being hyper manly, for example. Then yeah, you're gonna go broke. So learn something from this, peeps. Learn something. Don't put your money into stuff that is going to erase the things that you love. I've learned this with Tomb Raider. I now only support the classic stuff. unless things change, I will not be supporting anything else that comes out of Crystal Dynamics with Tomb Raider. So that is just one example of many. So anyway, there you have it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will catch you next time. And in the meantime, go boom.